I mean, my heart goes to the blue collar worker, like
Yeah.
100% every time. I love them. I think that they're very undervalued for
Mhm.
what they do. And I love that people or the industries are starting to see the value of the blue collar worker. Most people are uncomfortable with change. It's they're like, no, I like the way it is. I'm like, no, we're going to change it to this. And so it was a lot of fight to get that system and process in place.
Because it's really about how do we create a 5-star experience that is going to keep our customers coming back for
Yeah.
life, right? Like, how do we develop a lifetime customer?
In my company, I always tell my employees that, like, look, we get to be the better choice. As a company, we get to be a better choice, and as with our customers, we get to be the better choice.
Hello, friends. I'm Adam Loveridge, and welcome to the Home Services Marketing Podcast, From Growth to Acquisition. I'm the owner and founder of Blue Forge Marketing. We are a home services marketing agency specializing in heating and air conditioning, plumbing, remodeling, and garage door contractors. For more information about Blue Forge Marketing, visit us online at blueforgemarketing.com. Hello, and welcome to the Home Services Marketing Podcast, From Growth to Acquisition. My name is Adam Loveridge with Blue Forge Marketing. And today I'm really excited because we're going to be talking to a garage door company owner. And so far, we've been interviewing a lot of HVAC contractors, plumbers, that sort of thing. And I'm really excited to start a new series here where we're going to be focused on garage doors. And we have an incredible guest today, Carrie Kelsch with A Plus Garage Doors. And Carrie has been running an incredible business here for the last 20 years, and definitely the largest garage door company here in Utah. Carrie, thanks so much for joining me here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Adam. Such a pleasure to be here.
It's my pleasure to have you. So kicking things off here a little bit, Carrie, I'd love to talk a little bit about your history, because I know you haven't been doing garage doors, forever. So how did you get started in the garage door business, and what does your background look like?
Yeah, I have absolutely no business being in the garage door industry. I was a mortgage broker, and I loved it. I was doing amazing at it. I was dating a guy that worked for another garage door company, and he came to me and asked me to open up a garage door company. I really wanted nothing to do with it. I didn't want to be in business with him. I didn't want to be that permanent in a relationship that stuck. So I turned him down a couple of times. And after a few months, he kept coming back. He knew that a couple of my driving factors was I was a single mom, so I wanted a place for my kids to work. I was a serial entrepreneur, so you talk to me about opening up a business, it's going to be enticing. So we kind of touched on all that. So I knew he was a good salesman. He said, "Hey, if you open the company, you'll own it. I'll run it, and you'll have a place your kids can go work." And I was like, "Oh man, it's hard to say no to that." So I went ahead and opened it in 2005, thinking, "What? This is a open it up, put it on the shelf, don't have to worry about it again until my kids are old enough to get in the business."
Gotcha.
That's not true.
Not how it went down then,
No,
huh?
no, not how it played out at all. But
Well, let me ask you, are the kids in the business now? Did that happen?
actually, yes, I've had every one of my kids somewhat in the business. Right now, I currently have one, and then I have one that's 16, and he does. I apologize. He's 17. He just turned 17. I do a program called Youth in the Trades, and I opened that up just for him and his friends, is initially how it started, and it just has grown and grown and grown since then. But it's a way for these teenagers to be able to get exposure into the trades and realize that the trades is a really good way to make money and to have a career. And so I just wanted them to see that it's a possibility. If not everybody wants to go to college, the trades is a great option.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, by the way. And it's funny because, when I was growing up, right, the name of the game is go get educated, be a doctor, be a lawyer, and trades were kind of on their way out. It's why would you want to be a plumber? Why would you want to install garage doors? That's manual labor. Don't do it. And what's funny to me as somebody who's been in the industry now for a while and worked with a lot of home service contractors is that because the trades hasn't been this big focus, hiring in the trades is a dilemma now, right? And we're seeing now people coming full circle back to the trades because they're realizing I can go to school while I work and become a journeyman plumber as an example, make $120,000 to $150,000 a year. and
Even more, even more.
even more. So,
Yeah.
but if I'm starting out with $100,000 of student debt as an attorney, and I'm going to start from the bottom and maybe so, I mean, it's a fast track, I think, that a lot of people didn't consider, at least when the baby boomers, in my case, were raising us Gen Xers and saying like, you don't want to do the trades. Right. And I love seeing that it's come full circle now. And I think it's really neat that you're, I guess, just giving back in that way. So, thank you. That's,
I love it. It's so fun to watch these kids come in and do it. But I mean, my heart goes to the blue collar worker, like 100% every time. I love them. I think that they're very undervalued for what they do. And I love that people or the industries are starting to see the value of the blue collar worker.
yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more, honestly. There's a reason that we really only work with blue collar companies at the end of the day, because I've worked with attorneys and doctors and surgeons and you name it, and they're just my people, they're just my people. So, well, coming back to A Plus then, so you started this about 20 years ago, when, Ryan, who I know, right, is like, hey, let's go open up a garage door company kind of thing. And, I think you thought you'd kind of get into it, put it on the shelf and that's it. Tell me more about what some of those early days challenges were for you in A Plus Garage Doors.
Okay, yeah, for sure. There was plenty of them to choose from. So the way I actually got into working in the company was when the housing crisis happened in 2008. My loans just kept falling out from underneath me, not because I couldn't close them, but the mortgage companies kept going bankrupt, like Lehman Brothers, Countrywide. I'm just like, ah. So I really transitioned over to doing more and more in the garage door space. And from 2008 to 2013, I literally was just getting food on the table. Like, I didn't think about it. It's like, this is a company, somebody's got to run it. I was just like, get food on the table, make sure we have food, and make sure we pay the mortgage. And so by then, I've married Ryan, and we're running this, but I didn't think anything of it, and it wasn't ran very professional at all. It was kind of just a hot mess. We didn't have any structure. And that's when I got introduced to a program called Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. So I went to that, and with me not having any knowledge in how to run a business, I just implemented everything they taught me. But one of the first things they really taught me that just sunk in deep was, you've got a business. I'm like, I've got a what? They're like, you've got a business. Who's running the business? I'm like, oh, yeah, like somebody needs to run it. We didn't have directions or processes or systems, anything to make us really be able to grow and to be organized. I mean, papers all over the place, just doing deposits whenever we have enough money. It was literally, I'm surprised we made it that long. So that was one of the first challenges, is getting systems and processes in place, but even knowing that that's what I needed to do. So getting the information out there to know that that's what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And then once we started to get the systems and processes in place, it's getting everybody on board with that, because most people are uncomfortable with change. They're like, no, I like the way it is. I'm like, no, we're going to change it to this. And so it was a lot of fight to get that system and process in place.
Let me ask you on maybe a more personal level, how much was it a challenge for you to implement processes and systems and let the processes run the business instead of you being at the center of it?
It was easier for me because that was part of the training. Is the first they came in and they're like, you need to replace you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What will I do? And they're like, you need to replace you. So I started just trusting them. So really, me trusting what I learned at Goldman Sachs, me trusting that and then implementing it, it was part of that. So again, it kind of came hand in hand with everything else I was doing.
So when you were, between 2008 and 2013, how many trucks did you guys have on the road? What did that look like then? And what did that start to look like afterwards?
So we were about 1.5 million and I believe we had 6 employees. Really, I didn't have any organization. So when they're teaching me, like, hey, draw your organizational chart, I'm like, excuse me, like, what do you mean? Like, everything had to be so explained on an elementary level.
Yeah.
But eventually I got it. So I'm drawing a chart, and I feel like I did it the wrong way. So
Mm-hmm.
I put people in places instead of writing a chart and filling them in with people that need to be there. So but I think that, going back to your question of what do we look like, we were up to just 6 employees, which was probably 4 to 5 trucks.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And that was at the end of 2013 that you were still kind of there?
It was the end of 2013, yeah.
Okay. So 12 years later, how many trucks do you guys have on the road, and what does the difference look like in terms of revenue?
Yeah, so 96 vehicles on the road, and revenue is we're just pushing for 50 million.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so we're really close. I say we're gonna hit it. Let's think positive. We're gonna hit it. We're gonna hit 50 million.
Well, I mean, this is kind of a fun podcast for me because actually this is the first time I've interviewed one of my own clients on my podcast, and I'll tell you right now that if I've got anything to say about it, we're going to get you to 50 million for
Oh
sure.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Awesome.
It should be 100, right? 100 million in a few years.
Yeah. Well, and I know the other player in this particular industry anyway, who's, in that range that's, our big target. So, I that's what I really, frankly, just love about marketing is I'm just competitive by nature. Right. And it's like, how do we go take over, and
It serves in marketing, serves in business. I mean, I'm very competitive too. And so to see anybody else winning in Utah in the garage door space wasn't really an option. My husband's very competitive. My operations manager's really competitive. I mean, just all the way through, there's a lot of competition going on.
So other than implementing systems, right, and tightening up your SOPs, different things along those lines, when you talked about developing an org chart, what were some of the key positions that you needed to have in that org chart in order to be able to generally start to scale?
To even create the work chart, I was needing people in management really. So instead of being like a straight line down where it's everyone reports to me and it goes straight down, we needed to put kind of tiers in. So I needed somebody in sales. So somebody in sales, somebody in over like the office. So I mean, now we have it very structured. So I've got a CEO, a COO, I've got a CMO, and all the way down like general manager, office director, sales director, like the whole structure all the way down. You don't have that much structure when you're smaller, but I did have to have, we started as, I was always the CEO, and then I had operations underneath me, general manager, and from there they had their team of people. So that was the main one. I feel like getting your executive team really tight and really defining what the culture is and making sure that your executive team trusts and knows the culture and you guys know where you're going. That's like really the start of defining this.
Yeah. What's interesting about culture too is I think it's you either proactively define it or it just sort of happens by happenstance. And I'm curious about what that process looked like for A Plus Garage Doors.
It looked like firing some key people.
Hmm.
Really. Like choosing, is this person helping our culture or are they hurting our culture? So, and it's scary sometimes. You're letting go of one of your top revenuers because they're toxic.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
it's definitely a scary moment.
So really then it sounds like you kind of defined, here's what we want the culture of A Plus Garage Doors to look like. And, one way or another, if somebody wasn't a fit, then that becomes the criteria for their, leaving exiting the company.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are hard decisions.
They are.
Yeah.
Definitely hard decisions, but it's a decision that you need to make.
Yeah.
Like the way I see it is you've got to watch over everybody in your company. And if you're letting somebody toxic in there, you're not protecting the other team players.
Right.
So you got to watch out for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked really then about kind of like surrounding ourselves with, the right culture, right executive team, right, having processes, that sort of thing. What were some of the other keys to your success in going from, 6 trucks to 96 trucks in 12 years?
I'd say the system that we were on.
Okay.
Like our next big move was getting on Service Titan. That one was huge for us. And it was such an interesting roadmap to how we got there. It was in 2017, and we tried a couple other systems, and I'm not going to say which ones because they failed, and they weren't a good fit for us. We couldn't get out of them what we needed, and so I started contracting out to have somebody build me the perfect system, and that's when one of my employees that was out in the field came to me, Mitch Kelch, and he's like, have you heard of Service Titan? They just threw $10 million at garage door space. And I was like, definitely worth looking into, right?
Yeah.
We started looking into it. They wouldn't let us on at that time because they were just getting going with it. But it was very soon after, I think the beginning of 2018, that we started to launch.
Wow.
So that was a game changer when you're talking about scaling your business. When you have a system or your whatever systems you're using, if they're not scalable, then you're just going to have to get off of them and get on something else, and that just slows you down.
Yeah, yeah, it makes we're experiencing that right now in our own business, and realizing to a large degree where the systems that we really need that follow the process that we have don't exist out there. I mean, we're piecing together a whole bunch of different softwares, and so that's been a big push of ours. Is all right, if it doesn't exist, then we've got to go out and do what it sounds like you really tried to do from the beginning, which was, create the perfect system, right? In the case of home services now, it seems like Service Titan is definitely coming up as the, top dog leader of really all the CRMs, field management type softwares out there. And I'm curious to know from you, what specifically about Service Titan was it that was able to help you guys to really be able to achieve that growth?
Yeah, so transparency, like being able to see all of our data in one spot. My guys out in the field, they used to text me every night what their numbers were for the day, and I would write them down. And then when I got their paperwork at the end of the week,
Mm-hmm.
I'd match those numbers. They were never correct, ever. They are always overinflated every time.
Gotcha.
And so just being able to see like full transparency of what my company's doing in the minute, like not even in the day, like in the minute was so phenomenal. Just such an eye opener to me. Being able to see what I'm doing in marketing, knowing if I'm throwing something at marketing, I knew almost instantly if it was or was not working. So I could make quicker decisions. Being able to have all of our customer database in one place where everybody could access it no matter where they're at. Like it used to be, hey, are you near the office? Can you run to the office and look up this number? And can you, and now it's just everybody had access. So it's just being able to see everything that your company's doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, whenever, and I'll just, be upfront about this too. It's like, we had a conversation, last night, in fact, I want to say about, or it came up at least this idea of, when we're working with home service contractors, what do we see most prevalently out there in terms of field management software? And, and what's interesting to me is that it seems like if you're, an HVAC or plumbing, garage door, whatever it is, okay, there's all sorts of systems out there, that, I mean, I don't mind naming them, Jobber, House Call Pro, Field Edge. I mean, there's a variety of them. And we'll see where a lot of our smaller clients, let's say sub 5 million a year, will be on these different platforms, but there comes this point where if you genuinely want to scale, it seems like Service Titan is really the only thing that you see these larger companies on. And so as we've worked with companies in the, $10 million range, 20, 50, 100, That seems to be the standard. And so I truthfully don't know Service Titan well enough to be able to compare and contrast between the different CRMs out there. But I do know that if you are ever really looking at, say, being acquired, they're pretty much going to want to see you be on Service Titan, because that it has become just the industry standard. And it sounds like from your perspective, it's because it works.
Yeah, it's definitely because it works. Like I feel like we actually got lucky. Like we didn't know anything about it, and we've tried another one. And I've heard of companies that have tried getting on even Service Titan, and then they didn't really lean into it and didn't use it to its maximum capacity, and so they ended up finding out that it didn't work or it was too many issues. And we never had that experience. We got on and we were using it completely wrong, but it worked for us. And it worked for us enough to get us to like, I think it got us to like 25 million. So until we found out how horribly wrong we were doing it, and
Yeah.
then we had to change a lot of things. But the changes that we made were so minimal compared to having to switch from, one CRM to another. And
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, let's shift gears here just a little bit, okay? Because I appreciate you talking about Service Titan with me, and just kind of your story thus far. But this is the Home Services Marketing Podcast, and I know that both you and Ryan are pretty serious marketers. So tell me about what did your marketing look like when you guys were at that 6 truck range, and what did that look like as you started to grow to 25 million, and what does it look like today?
yeah, so I'm gonna go back to 2008 when I got in
Okay.
the industry, and what it looked like was I was killing it in the phone books, and I had the front page covered, and I had the front and the second page covered. Like I didn't need anything else. I was happy as could be. That's all I needed. And then I had somebody come to me that was pitching me on this idea of going on the internet. And so by 2013, when we're scaling it, and um, I've been I've been doing the internet, but we weren't seeing, and we were seeing the needle move on it, but we were still so heavy in phone books. And then we started to see the scales, shift. So then we're like, oh wow, the phone books aren't bringing in anything. The internet, we're just killing it on the internet. And so we were one of the first adopters in Utah in the garage door space to be doing that. So it was, yeah, a lot of print ad and then all of a sudden digital. And that's not where my expertise is, because all I knew was the print.
That's a lot about my story too, honestly, in terms of how I actually got into marketing in general, because in 2007, I had finished doing some school. I was working for my dad at the time and wanted to venture out onto my own, and do my own thing. And so I decided I was going to go into real estate investing. Right in March of 2007 is when I opened my company. And suffice it to say, it was a really abysmal time to try to start a investing company. We lost my shirt, honestly, for the first couple of years. And at the time, I was doing a ton of direct mail, and more traditional methods of getting into stuff. And I noticed that my returns from direct mail kept getting less and less and less. And I started kind of getting into the online space, and all of a sudden, it was just we just took off. And, eventually I got out of that business, in essence, started a rent to own home company, because that was, lease options and alternative financing seemed to be really the best way to try to get real estate deals done at that time. And I'm sure you probably understand that as somebody trying to close jumbo loans and having the loan companies, going bankrupt in the process. And next thing I know, I own a brokerage and a property management company, and we've got, hundreds of homes that we've got tenant buyers in, and all because I went and did a little keyword research and saw that 3,000 people a month were typing in rent to own homes Utah. And, and back then I rent to own homesutah.com was available. I bought it, slapped it onto WordPress. It ranked in a day, but then the real issue was like, well, now how do we get them to actually raise their hand and be able to collect data from people? And so it started with a real cheesy video of something to the effect of, if you want to rent to own a home, you're in the right place. Put your information in the form below and we'll contact you every time we get a property. And then it was, the property management thing came along because we couldn't get then enough homes to put people into. And we were on average, selling, if you will, on a lease option on, I would say 20 homes a month. And yeah. And that just, because of Google, right? Because of the
Because you were
internet.
quick to adopt it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, and you guys, have done, I think, just a fantastic job of really dominating the state of Utah through the strategy that you follow. And that's not so much what I'm really, trying to get into, but obviously SEO, I know, is a big part of what, A Plus Garage Doors is doing.
Yeah.
What other digital marketing activities and maybe more traditional branding activities are you also relying on?
Oh my goodness, we have a number of things that we're doing. And we've tried almost everything out there in being able to, like I said, be able to track it and see if it's giving us a return or if it's not. But I mean, the billboards, the TV, the radio, it's still some print out there. For digital, you almost have to be everywhere, right? I feel like I need to be wherever the next boom is going to be, and that's clearly going to be in AI. So you're going to need to be on the search engine, so people are going to be able to find you. Like, where's that going to be? Don't get behind the wrong one, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know that we're working a lot on the AIO, right? Is I think what that's being affectionately coined. But making sure that we're showing up when people start looking for garage door companies in ChatGPT or Perplexity or Grok or any of these others. And so it's funny because I get questions all the time about, I bet AI is killing your SEO business. I'm like, no,
No,
it's
no.
not in the least. If anything, it's given us an entire
Yeah,
new field.
it's as big as shifting from the phone books
Mhm.
to the internet. That's how big it is going to be, and it's the first ones to adopt it are going to be the ones that win.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So, and kind of coming back to Service Titan too, and I'll maybe just touch a point on not necessarily that, but you mentioned, return on investment, right? Being able to track that ROI. And I think that that's actually one thing that Service Titan does incredibly well. And we could probably go on for days talking about attribution. Obviously if we're running, say, billboards, we're never going to track whether or not somebody saw our billboard and picked up the phone and called us, unless we're using some sort of dedicated number. But it's really a branding activity, at the end of the day. And I'm wondering, how do you look at that sort of lead generation type campaigns versus branding campaigns, and how important are one versus the other?
When I was small, I didn't think about branding. I made a very intentional move from, what I call it marketing. Like we're gonna keep marketing, but now we're gonna actually focus on branding. So that's when I would go and do things like the billboard or get our name out there on the radio, things like that you're not able to track, but the way that you can see if it's working is just watching how, or the way I could, you would know more than me, but the way I can see that it's working is if people are searching my name and that search has been going up. So I'm getting more and more customers searching for my name. That means my branding's out there working.
Yep. Well, and truth be told, there are no more creative ways that we can track that than just going into Search Console and watching, comparing the last 3 months versus the 3 months before that. How much has our brand traffic increased, and
And my brand traffic has increased quite a bit just this year. So thank you.
you can't track those activities, but there is no doubt that it's making a difference. And in fact, I know just recently, you had us really go out and optimize for, your updated logo, right? I actually never really even considered that. But when somebody is hasn't been fully exposed to your brand yet and maybe doesn't recognize the, A plus garage door name, but you've got a logo with a mascot or something to that effect, it really, you've got to kind of get into the minds, I think, of your potential customers and say, okay, even though we might be the biggest, baddest garage door company in the state of Utah, we still can't expect somebody to necessarily have brand recognition.
Yeah.
And got to think about all the different ways that they might try to search for us when they see one of our
Yeah.
trucks driving down the street. And so,
100%. You got to consider it all. And every customer is different. Every person out there is different the way that they search and what they're looking for.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, and one of the things that I think that you guys do really well to kind of shift gears, not terribly far away, but I think this to me is still a big piece of developing a brand, and that is getting positive feedback, right, in the form of reviews and that sort of thing. And I know that that is something that A Plus Garage Doors does just incredibly well. And I wonder if you would share for for our listeners what some of your strategies and learning lessons have been in terms of developing an incredible reputation online.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely go into that. So, in order to get a review online, you've got to make it super simple for the customer and super simple for the technician. So, everybody involved, it has to be very easy for them to be able to get the review. So, there's many options out there. We actually use Tap Easy, Tap Easy reviews, and that makes it so our people in the field, so our employees in the field can easy just request that the review be sent, and we like them to request it. I know that Service Titan does have an option so it can automatically go out and automatically ask the customer, but I want the employee to take ownership of that. I want them to go, like, when they show up at the door, they're thinking, I've got to go and do a 5-star experience because I'm going to ask them for a 5-star review. I want that to be top of mind, because it's not, the review is more than just getting a review so it's on Google. It's
Sure.
more than that. The review is also the feedback that we're getting from the customer saying this employee is doing an amazing job. This whoever's representing A Plus is doing a fantastic job. So it's our feedback, because we can't have eyes on every truck,
Sure.
right? We can't be at every job. And so we really love the feedback, but making sure that it's so simple and that it's just seamless. And then we reward our guys. Like, it is the standard is you have to get so many reviews. That's just the standard for the company. Everyone has to go out there and get a certain amount of reviews. But then anybody that goes above and beyond, we reward them with, they get tickets, and we make a game out of it. So we kind of gamify it so that they enjoy it. They have a fun time. They all get together and they come up, they win money, they spin a wheel. Like, if you've seen any of my social media, you'll see it because it's my favorite part of the day. You get to give out money. They're happy. You pull a ticket, they'll get to come up. Like I said, spin the wheel. They might win $1,000. They might win $5. Or, well, it's never been 5. It's always been 20,
Yeah.
40, 50, whatever that may be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I like that. And what's kind of coming up for me as I hear you talking about that is that it's more than, like you said, just getting a review on Google, right? It's how we're getting feedback from customers, but if for our listeners, I think the deeper part of this is that's the culture that you've developed at A Plus Garage Doors, because it's really about how do we create a 5-star experience that is going to keep our customers coming back for life, right? Like, how do we develop a lifetime customer? And if our technicians don't have any, feedback, right, and we don't get any feedback about our technicians, and they're kind of just out there doing their thing and flying all over the place and not following SOPs, and there's really no consequences for somebody doing a crap job, as an example, right? Then that's going to affect the culture of the company. And I think that's something that you've done really, really well. And we talked about this earlier in the show, right? Is like, how do we develop that culture? And what I love about this is that by putting the responsibility, if you will, on the technicians to consistently ask for reviews. And it's like, this is the standard. This is not a, we're going to reward you every time you get a review necessarily. This is part of your job description. And we'll also make it fun by gamifying it, turn it into a little bit of a competition, and and everybody performs better when there's a little competition, I think.
Yes. Well, and especially when you've got your technicians out there that do sales,
Yeah,
they're going to perform better when there's a competition.
yeah, yeah,
They're competitive by nature. But
absolutely.
you're absolutely right. Like, assuming that you own any of it, you don't own your employees, you don't own your customers. Like, you got to be the better choice for everything. And I take this throughout my life. Like, even me and my husband talk about it. It's like, you know what? If I'm not the better choice, what am I doing wrong? Like, go be the better choice, right? So even with it in my company, I always tell my employees that, like, look, we get to be the better choice. As a company, we get to be a better choice, and as with our customers, we get to be the better choice.
That's fantastic. I think that's a really, really good philosophy. And I probably am practicing something similar to that, myself too, because right, it's we talked earlier about imposter syndrome a little bit before this call, and I think that's something that I've certainly struggled with as the CEO of my company. I know that you felt
Oh,
identified that way too, but at the end of the day, we really do. The striving, at least I think, is to genuinely just be the best, right? It's not about being a better choice, even as much as like, I want to be the best choice. And you're right about one thing too, is that you can't control anybody. Obviously you don't own anybody. And the fact of the matter is we're never going to appeal to everybody.
no.
But I think that it's really about how do we appeal though to the largest population of potential buyers in our marketplace, and I think that's something that A Plus has done a particularly good job at.
Yeah. Well, and letting the customers know that how well you do, that's where the reviews come back
Yeah,
into play.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. So Carrie, one of the things that I really like to talk about on the podcast is the, home services marketing growth to acquisition podcast, or people's exit strategies. And I know that, at least in the last few years, I believe, A Plus was acquired, or you otherwise, have joined a larger, private equity type thing. Tell me a little bit about, that, I guess, first of all, and kind of what that process looked like for you.
yeah. So in 2022, then I made the decision that we are going to join a group. So we started looking at the different groups to join. And I wanted one that would really take care of my team, because I know better than anybody that it's a team that got me here. It is not me. And I really wanted to take care of my team that have got me this far.
Hmm.
So we were just looking at different groups. And the group that we settled on was Guild Garage Group. And the reason we settled on them is their values aligned with our values, and so their culture aligned with us, and it was such an easy transition. But they are all about just collecting the best of the best garage door companies and putting us all under one roof, and making sure, like, we're not changing our brands, so we've got a lot of different brands in there, so we all keep our identities, and we're not really competing in the same markets. So we're able to grow our companies, holding on to some of our equity, and then Guild will take some of the equity, and just the amount of support that they give us. But the transition to get there, I mean, it's never easy. Where there's a lot of changes. I, for 20 years, was never an employee, so that was fun. So I'm like, wait, I got to report to you. So
All of a sudden, you have a
that was,
manager, huh?
yeah, that was an interesting change.
Yeah.
But it's been amazing. And now we have best practices from all of these brilliant garage door owners. And I just feel like I found my people, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great, because there's a couple of things that you've said that kind of stand out to me, and one of them being that we're not competing, in an area. And I've done some work for a private equity company a while back. It's not really worth getting into the mentions of or anything along those lines, but what they had done has gone through, this was in fact their strategy to literally buy up every HVAC and plumbing company that they could in this particular market. Which was largely a state anyway, and it was kind of fascinating to me when we were doing work for them, because we have a one of our core values is ethical exclusivity, and I've always felt like as an SEO guy, we really can't take on two contractors that do the same thing in the same area, because how are we going to, like, which one of them gets, because invariably one of them is going to get preferential treatment, and it's probably going to be the one that's paying you the most, right? And so we've never done that, and to be frank, it's probably limited our growth, because I know that that's not true with a lot of other marketing agencies out there. But it just, for me, I sleep better at night, and I never have to have a rough conversation with somebody going like, wait, why is this company that you work for also kicking our butts, right? But it was interesting when we were working with these guys how much we were tromping on each other, and
So,
it
yeah,
just
I've seen the same thing happen even in my own company, because at one point, I have A plus garage doors, and my husband opened expert garage doors because we're like, well, we're the number one company, and he's like, well, I'll just be the number two company. We'll get all the market.
right,
And so we opened up expert garage doors, and he was running that, and we had different colors, different vehicles, different everything. But the guys, when they would meet each other, there was this conflict, and sometimes we're bidding on the same jobs. It was just so uncomfortable. And I don't see it working where there's a lot of camaraderie with them when you're competing against a different company, because
yeah,
we're not going to go to a job where A plus is bidding against A plus,
right,
you know? And
right.
so I think it's important when I was choosing the group that I wanted to choose a group that was their strategy was not to go and have competing competition in my market.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like then really with the transition to Guild, it's Guild Garage Door Company, is that correct?
It's
Or
Guild Garage Group.
Guild Garage Group. So it may be a little bit rocky, but for the most part, it's been a really, really good fit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and Rocky's probably a very rough term. It's just there's whenever there's changes, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be just, selling away. It's some rough waters, but we got through it. They gave us a lot of support to get through it.
Gotcha. What would you say have been some of the key advantages then of becoming part of a private equity group, if you will, for A Plus Garage Doors?
Yeah, besides getting like 50 immediate best friends going on, that's been really nice. I've got a lot of people in the group that are just so great, and I can relate with them. We could talk about, what's personal and professionally what our troubles are, and so we can just relate to that. But I would say the benefits of buying power,
Mhm.
right? Um, just being able to like have a growth opportunity for all of my employees. They're not going to run into the issue where they want to expand and there's nowhere to go. So that's been a great bonus. And then growing it overall, there's no way we could be growing like we are in Vegas without Guild. Like the support that they give us and the direction that they help us out with. And if we were growing without Guild, it would have been not wise to do it the way that we're doing it, because when you have a group coming in, you can put more resources there. Where if you're just a small company, you're watching the bank account, you're watching every dollar, and you're like, oh, I just don't want to put money there because I need to make payroll, and you just don't have those struggles.
Right. You've got a lot more constraints, I think, when you're not PE backed. I mean, obviously. So, and we've seen that trend quite a bit, I think, as particularly in the MEP space, where you're seeing this kind of constant roll up, and then, private equity comes in and just, floods the market in essence. Right. And it is difficult to compete. And I hadn't really planned on asking this, but if you were a smaller contractor and you're trying to, do what you did in essence, where you grow to a pretty substantial size before really looking at acquisition or anything else, what advice would you give somebody to, to be competitive and really carve out a corner in their niche?
Yeah. So I feel like you can't do what everybody else is doing and think that you're going to be able to do it better. So you almost have to find like something that they're not doing that's going to work for you. For us coming in, it was getting our GMBs, opening up a GMB, and that was, I think that is going to run its course. But just doing something different and finding out what that is, what are you going to be a specialize in, and go down that road. I don't think it's I think that it's still a good strategy if you want to stay on your own, but make sure that you know your financials, know your KPIs. Like you're going up against some really big players that are super smart. So you need to be educated too. You need to know what your company's doing, where you want to go, what's your KPIs. So
Gotcha.
you're educated on it.
Well, and I think that's really, really good advice. And that's honestly what I usually share with, when we have somebody that comes in, let's say, and they're just getting started as a plumber, it's like, how do I go out and compete with, I mean, we have one in our market, Any Hour, that I know,
Mm-hmm.
right. There's over $100 million a year. And so, when I'm talking with somebody that's just coming to the market and they're like, well, how do we go compete with Any Hour? It's like, well, you don't, like not directly, right? You're just, this isn't a David and Goliath story. This is a Goliath and you're just going to get wiped out story. But one of the things that we've been able to do very, very successfully, is take those same plumbers, if you would, right, and say, what is that one service that you can go out and be better at than anybody or more specialized than anybody, right? Sometimes that'll be water heaters. Sometimes it'll be repiping. Sometimes it will be, most recently we've started working in the last 6 months with a trenchless sewer line repair company. And what's interesting about that from a digital marketing perspective is that Google and also the large language models, right? The LLMs, both are really looking for specialists. Okay. And, interestingly enough, if you go out and type something into Google to the effect of how to program a LiftMaster remote, you're going to see A+ garage doors pull up nationally for those types of keyword terms and be featured in the AI overviews. And we're seeing that same thing with this trenchless sewer line repair company,
Mm-hmm.
where if you start typing in anything, in the LLMs or on Google about trenchless sewer line repair in the state of Utah, you're probably going to see them pull up.
Yeah.
And the reason
They're
is
the specialists.
exactly right.
Yeah.
If you need a brain surgery, you're not going to go to a family practitioner, right?
Yeah, and more everyone is wanting the specialist for sure.
I think specialization.
Find out what you're good at, market for that. Don't try to do everything.
100%. I think that's really the recipe for disaster, right? Is trying to be all things to all people. And I think there is obviously a point where, you can add service lines, you can add, and vertical integrations and different things along these lines, right? But as you're already alluding to, it takes money.
Yeah.
And you kind of have already needed to really carve out your little corner of the marketplace anyway, I think, to make that happen. So, yeah, I guess this has been kind of a fun discussion around that I didn't really necessarily think we'd get into. But, Carrie, this has been really, really wonderful. And I really appreciate, having you come on. Is there anything else, in the way of, just, for our listeners, if you could sum it up to maybe the top 3 or 4 things that you
Mhm.
recommend any company out there that wants to be successful in the home services space should do, what would those things be?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to hire. So many companies are afraid to hire, and they're just afraid of that. So how else are you going to grow? So don't be afraid to hire, and be intentional with your culture. If you're not creating the culture, it's doing something. It's creating itself, and that is very unfortunate. So I think those two things really can get you to grow, but track your advertising, know where your dollars are being spent. I was explaining to a friend, and I actually was talking to him at my kitchen table. So I said, do you know what a colander is? And he's like, what do you mean? And so I pull a colander out and I said, if this is your company and you're just pouring more water in, you've got to fill all these holes or else you're just wasting your money. And he's like, oh my gosh, he's like, yes, I got to fill so many holes. I mean, get your call rate up, your booking percentage up, focus on all your KPIs, clean them up.
Fantastic. Well, Carrie, thanks again so much for joining me here. It's been absolutely wonderful to have you on and to share your experience. And I think your results really speak for themselves, frankly.
Oh, thank you, Adam.
Yeah, my pleasure. And for our listeners, once again, my name is Adam Loveridge. This is the Home Services Marketing from Growth to Acquisition podcast. I've been joined here today by Carrie Kelsch, the CEO of A Plus Garage Doors in Utah and now Las Vegas, it sounds like. And we look forward to catching you here on the next one. Thanks so much.